Good day, friends. It's the 9th of March. Happy Palm Sunday. For those of you of the Orthodox faith, or looking at the Orthodox faith, heading to church, as a matter of fact, right now. So, what I want to talk about today, I want to discuss today the scandal, the religious war that Zelensky and his Anglo-Satanic handlers have unleashed in Ukraine. Most of you, of course, have no idea what's going on, because that's the way the West likes you, ignorant peasants. But those listening to here are obviously not planning on staying ignorant peasants. They're planning on being masters of their own fate. Well, at least trying to be, as much as the powers that be of the West would allow you. It says something, because in France, they finally started unraveling banners calling for revolution. So France may be the model for the West. Screaming and protesting doesn't work, because, simply put, your masters don't give a damn. You're one step higher in biomaterial than Ukrainians and everyone else, just because you're a lot closer to home than the Ukrainians are. But in the end, the masters of the universe don't give a damn about what's good for you or what you care about. They don't. They're going to shove their agenda down your throats until you either gag and fall on your knees or you cut their heads off. I mean, that's the reality of it. So France is now calling, there's a protest calling not for changes in certain policies, but they're unraveling banners calling for revolution. So Macron and his banker buddies and the close opposition parties that are just the same as he is in the end are looking at something a bit more serious. So I'd expect a lot more oppression of the people coming soon. Violent oppression, because that's how the French government and its democracy rolls. And how all of these democracies, supposed democracies, roll. They're all great democracies as long as you agree to everything that they say, or disagree on very minor issues. And the moment anything major pops up, they'll beat your brains in, or gas you, or shoot you outright. So Zelensky, the greatest Democrat in the world, the greatest leader ever seen in humanity, the greatest general, the most uncorrupt person ever set foot on Earth, and so on, has unleashed a holy war in Ukraine. So you have Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which is a part of the Russian Orthodox Church. It's the church that has always been on Ukraine. And part, I mean, it's a semi-autonomous wing of the Moscow Patriarch, which is allowed in the Orthodox Church. They choose their own local priests, or as they wish, or their priests can go into Russia and serve in Russia and other portions, and so on. The church in Korea and the church in China, they're all part of the Russian Orthodox Church. As far as Orthodox, that's the territories of the Orthodox Patriarch of Moscow. That's one. That thing is called canonical borders. They are separate from political borders. Political borders come and go. Canonical borders stay in place. That's why when the Abkhazian and the South Ossetian churches asked Alexei II, the previous patriarch, to secede from the Georgian Patriarchy after their little civil wars and join the Russian Church, the Church said no. Canonical borders do not change. They are set, and they will not change. Political borders are an irrelevant issue. As politics comes and goes, the church is immortal. So, anyways, a couple of years ago, the Patriarch of Istanbul, he likes to call himself Constantinople, the one that is trying to have his papal moment. We broke with the Catholic Church because the Patriarch of Rome decided he wasn't first amongst equals, he was going to be first. Everybody else had to do what he said. Well, that's not how it works. the Patriarch of Constantinople has long decided he's now the head of Orthodoxy, not as first amongst equals, but as first. So he's having problems. So he went into Ukraine and he took this splinter church created by a heretic who was exiled from the Orthodox Church. And he decided to create him in his own image and make out of him a patriarch, local patriarch, which isn't really true in the end, because the Ukrainian Church of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine is still absolutely under the control of the Greek Church, well, at least on paper. It's not really an autonomous church. It can't decide anything. It can't even make its own myrrh. It has to buy it from Istanbul, from the Turkish captain, now called a patriarch. And it breaks all kinds of canon laws, because under canon laws, if one is excommunicated, he can only be received back into the church by the church that did the excommunication, not by any other patriarch, metropolitan, or anyone else. So, he broke tons of canon laws. And in part, he was promised a lot of monasteries and things like that. One of which is Petrovska Lavra, which is one of the first, if not the first, major monasteries in Rus, and from which came a lot of the monastics that built the other monasteries over the centuries. It's a very holy place. There's lots and lots of saints. So these heretics want it. They want everything, of course. And Zelensky backs them because to them, God is a Ukrainian nationalist. Quite literally. If you look at anything that they talk about, put in place, Christ, if mentioned, is somewhere at the bottom of the list. Ahead of him is Ukrainian nationalism, fascism, where it's, as they say, God wills you to kill all the Russians, exterminate women and children because it's good. You know, already you know by the fruits they bear that these are nothing but satanic little bastards. And the West loves them. Oh my God, does the West love them. Because they're tools for the West, just like everything else that's a tool for the West. So the West absolutely adores them. So we got this kind of problem going. 20 million, there's probably about 20, originally it was about 22 million people belong to the Moscow Patriarchy in Ukraine. Some people don't know the difference. They changed, others under pressure, but the vast majority have stayed loyal to the true church, not to this heretic, or group of heretics, and their American owners. Well, so call it what it is. The Satanists in D.C. are the owners of this church. They're the owners of everything that's evil that's going on in Ukraine, one way or the other. The big guy. So anyways, so now there's protests, and the people, the 200 monks were ordered to leave because their church property is now a museum. So right back to Soviet tactics, right back to the Bolshevik mode, and they tried to bring their thugs, but the people came in mass, did eulogies, services, and wouldn't allow the paid protesters and the thugs in. So there's a standoff going on. Now, sooner or later, the standoff is going to end only one way. They arrested the director of the monastery, put a bracelet on his leg, and they've arrested. He's under house arrest for sedition, charges of sedition, which are bull. But this is the great democracy of Ukraine that murders its political rivals, bans all political opposition, has consolidated all media under Zelensky and his nose candy that the West brings him, and the other puppets that he owns, or that are in there with him. Great democracy. Typical American democracy. Writ large. Same thing that's happening now in America, by the way. There's a lot fewer opposition parties to ban than you had in Ukraine. The third worldization of any of these so-called democracies or republics under corrupt dictators. I mean, that is the ideal of the deep state in the U.S. They just can't quite do it yet at full force in the U.S. because too many people with weapons in their hands. But they're coming for that too. And then you too can know the greatness of Ukrainian democracy. Ukrainization. Take the drugs, do what you're told, go beat whomever you're told, and you'll get to survive. You won't live well unless you're the leader of these bands. Then you get to steal and murder as much as you want. Democracy. Demonocracy. Let's not forget, God is a king. Satan is an anarchist. He's the will of the people as the people will it. Because guess what happens to the will of the people? It always degrades into animalistic desires. That's what you get in the West these days. So anyways, that's the standoff right now. So, Zelensky's following the secret text of the Art of War. The really, really secret one that none of you have seen, that says, when you're losing a war to an opponent, make sure you stir up a civil war too. That's the path to victory. But that's what you got right now. Zelensky's stirring up a civil war in Ukraine. He's oppressing the believers. They get to bend the knee and go to the heretical church and damn their souls, or they're not worth anything and they should be exterminated. In fact, his right hand, what's his name, Podolsky, anyways, went on television and said, at the beginning of this, we should have murdered all of the, this is on television, shows a news program showing on Ukrainian television, we should have murdered all the Russian speakers from day one. But we didn't. But we still can, and we will. It's going to be harder, but we will. So all those Ukrainians that consider themselves loyal Ukrainians but speak Russian, or consider themselves Russian in any way, your fate is a concentration camp at best, or a pit with a bolt in the back of the head. That's democracy. That is true democracy. 51% taking away the rights of the 49. Welcome to true democracy. Why, it's the most despicable form of government in the world. It's mob rule. As long as you get one little bastard that can pull the strings of the mob one way or the other, it's like a bunch of horde of zombies. You just turn them into which way you want, and they'll destroy everything in their way. Horde of zombies driven by greed, pride, and worst of all, racist ultranationals, national ideas. So, anyways, that's Ukraine. So, all of you paying your money in taxes to your governments that are supporting Ukraine are supporting mass murder. Yesterday, there were another almost a dozen people killed, or 2 days ago, I'm sorry, in Donetsk, and a couple dozen wounded, with American HIMARS fired by Americans, targeted by Americans. Let's just keep it as it is. I mean, that's what it is. Ukrainians aren't in those HIMARS. It wasn't all HIMARS. There were plenty of Ukrainian artillery, heavy artillery. They're being pushed out further back and back. So that's why America's providing longer range missiles. So they can keep hitting city centers. Not military targets. City centers, women and children. Great democracy there. Great Western values. I mean, those are Western values. Murder the locals and pillage everything you can. Western civilization at its core. Go with God.